Nowadays, you can't just get up, go outside, make a film and distribute it. There are certain rules and regulations that have to be followed before you're allowed to put a film on the market. If these rules aren't met, you could be prosecuted.
Risk assessments and location recce's are important for everyone in the workplace. They're there to protect everyone in the company. They help keep the practical members of a production from getting injured or arrested, and they protect the producers and CEOs from being sued by their employees. Many risks need to be taken into consideration as crews can be working with lots of electrical appliances, lots of different weather conditions and lots of people. Some examples of precautions in the media industry are: wires need to be kept away from liquids and taped to the ground to ensure that no one trips over.
What an excellent point, Joe!
When the crew are working at great heights, they need to consider the risks to themselves and the equipment. Isn't that right, Henry?
I'm scared.
Sound levels and mics need to be checked to make sure the frequencies and volumes are not going to damage the sound crew's ears. Isn't that right, Henry?
What?
The sound crew's ears need to be protected!
Huh? These are just some examples in the media industry, but many of these risks can be seen in any sort of workplace.
Henry, you're getting a bit loud.
Here is an example of something that can happen when no risk assessments have been filled out.
Where's you on this?
Out the door to the left.
Aye. It's for reasons like this that risk assessments and location recce's are carried out at least once a year for any location or studio where people are employed. It's also why staff training is performed throughout the year, reminding staff of general safety such as fire safety, wet floors, lifting heavy equipment and appropriately using ladders.
In the workplace, it is important to evaluate the safety of other people around you. For example, when working around the general public, their safety is incredibly important. Every precaution needs to be taken to ensure that a member of the public is not harmed. If a member of the public is harmed due to a lack of safety checks, you could be looking at a big lawsuit. If someone is harmed in this instant and you do not have a first aider present to help a member of the public, then you'll be looking at an even bigger lawsuit.
But has all of this health and safety gone a bit too far? Are we now insulting our employees' common sense and patronising them with incessant paperwork and safety courses?
The Race Relations Act of 1976 states that no one is allowed to discriminate another person in any circumstance relevant for the purpose of this act. And if they do treat the person victimised less favourably than those circumstances they treat or would treat another person, they could be prosecuted.
This essentially means that you're not allowed to discriminate someone. This now all comes under the Equality Act of 2010. An example of this happening would be, say if an older TV host was fired to be replaced with an attractive younger host, then the original presenter could claim that her age was being discriminated. This actually happened in 2005, where Selena Scott sued Channel 5 for £250,000 because she was replaced by a younger host, Natasha Koplinski on 5 News. Hey Henry. Henry,
Yeah?
why don't you have some pizza?
What?
Because you call her Italian.
Okay. Joe. Can I have some of that delicious water?
I gave water to an Italian once. I got a cough like 4 days later. I'm not making that mistake again.
Right.
You.
Yeah?
You think you can pretend not to like pizza? You think you can have some of my water? The only thing you can have is my knuckle sandwich.
He was being mean, and he wasn't sharing, and he kept calling me Italian.
Look, I'm really sorry about that, but I've got something that'll make you feel all better. So I gave him a pizza, it cost me £2.40 from Tesco's, and now he's filed a complaint against me.
These quarter Italians, they're all the same.
But are these laws too flawed? Are these laws also guilty of being discriminative, as they don't seem to include every minority? And if you are forced to choose between two people's identical CVs, with the only variable being their skin colour, couldn't the person who remains unemployed still go on to sue the company for discrimination?
Now, as an employee of a company, you have rights set out by the government to protect you. These are called the statutory rights, and they apply to anyone employed in the UK, including the right to obtain minimum wage, the right to paid holiday, and not to be discriminated. These are just some of the laws, but if you wish to know all of the statutory rights, then please visit the link below. Some of the laws can be overruled by your employer, if you agree to the terms of course. The example of this is the opt-out system. The statutory rights state you cannot legally work more than 48 hours a week. However, if you sign the opt-out system, then you are able to work more than this. As well as your statutory rights, you also have your contractual rights, which include all of the statutory rights, along with extra rights given to you by the company. For example, shares in a company, extra holiday, and annual bonuses. All of these can be stated in your contract.
Since the Broadcasting Act of 1990, it's been illegal to own more than 20% of the British television industry. This is to ensure that no small amount of companies could dominate British television. This is called oligopoly, where a select few corporations control an industry over cross-media platforms. But when Sky was brought over from America by Rupert Murdoch, he managed to own more than the limit of 20% because it wasn't a UK service. This allowed Channel 4 to sell its own advertising instead of relying on ITV and Channel 5, which was also introduced. In all, this Broadcasting Act created more globalisation and competition between big corporations.
Ofcom was introduced in 2003 with the Communications Act. This company controlled the cross-media of communication technologies, such as film, TV and radio. Its responsibilities is to make sure that the public is protected by things that are featured in the media, which would be considered to be offensive. They don't have the power to stop a programme from showing on air, but they can evaluate it, and also read any complaints that the viewers may have. If a lot of complaints were received, then they can talk to the people who aired the show to make an apology, or even pay a fine. An example of this is in an episode of Channel 4's Big Brother. Ofcom received over 3,500 complaints in 2007 because of racism that was aimed towards Shilpa Shetty, a Bollywood star, by other housemates. Ofcom took this to Channel 4, and since, they have made their rules and requirements for all of their programmes more strict.
The company changed a lot of the rules that restricted cross-media ownership. This encouraged massive conglomerates to dominate the industry even more. Their overall goal is to make sure people, locations and ethical issues are all presented truthfully and fairly. They also have a watershed of 9 PM, which protects children from profanity on TV. So we didn't actually come up with a sketch idea for the watershed, so
And I said to him that the gander fanatics in today's economy are absolutely inflated to astronomical degrees in this time.
quiet! Now I say, what time is River Parallel tomorrow?
How's the crack of dawn sound, old chap?
Spectacular! Is it quarter to the hour yet? My wobble schmobble will be getting worried.
No, it's 9 o'clock. Oh, well, you, you little f***.
Off!
Oi, where's the bread, you
Right, now back to the program. I didn't even swear! Anyway, oh.
Laws over time has changed dramatically. The novel Lady Chatterjee's Lover is a well-known example of the Obscene Publications Act of 1959. It wasn't until the 1980s that the book was released back onto the market because it featured profanity. Imagine if 50 Shades of Grey was released back in the 70s. Hey Joe, is the BBFC just used in Britain, or is it universal?
Oh, Henry, stop acting like you're 12, eh?
I'm not 12, Joe. I have a certificate.
Should we get on with the show?
No. I think we should have some tea. Maybe PG.
I think that would be advisory. There was a similar issue in film and television. In 1984, the Video Recordings Act made it so that videos couldn't be sold to anyone under the certified age, unless it's a sport, educational, or to do with religion or music, and doesn't show violence, sex, or any criminal offences.
In the early 80s, it was discovered there was a market for gory horror films. They were cheap to make and would skip the exhibition stage and go straight to VHS. This was because cinemas wouldn't show them due to their gruesome violence. But under the law, they would be quickly banned, and whoever was found to own or rent the tape could be fined £60,000 and serve time in jail.
But who decides what certificate a film is? It's the BBFC, also known as the British Board of Film Classification. They are funded by the government and have the responsibility of deciding what age classification films are. They are covered by the Video Recordings Act, so the age rating that they give is by law. The cinemas do not have to abide by this. They are allowed to set their own age ratings, as they like, but the BBFC give them their recommendation.
Earlier, I did my own analysis of film trailers and gave them a rating. First up was Pixar's Brave. The trailer seemed harmless at first, but once you look closer then there's use of weapons, violence and horror. An example of this is the fighting scene, and for a brief moment the main character is in danger from a bear attack. Because of these factors, I gave it a rating of PG, which is also what the BBFC rated. Next up was The Awakening, a British horror set in the 1920s. In the trailer I saw weapons, nudity, dangerous behaviour, violence and horror. Because of this, I thought that the film would definitely not be allowed to show anyone under the age of 15. This is because if it was a 12A, then young children could still get access to it with the supervision of an adult. But it turns out I was wrong, and the BBFC gave it a 12A certificate on the 15 borderline. They also only identified that there was horror and violence in the trailers. Freelance is the most popular form of contract in film production, with 91% of crews freelancing. That only leaves 9% being permanent employees. This is unlike the exhibition and distribution side of filmmaking, where all of the staff are permanently employed. But what are the perks from working freelance? Well, if you're good at your job, it will most probably mean that you're constantly asked for work, and you get to decide if you want to take the job. It gives you the opportunity to work a variety of jobs around the country, or even the world. You can also set your own rate. You can put forward what you think your time is worth, which, if you're exceptionally good at your job, can be a lot of money. This is great, but there can also be some downsides. Some freelancers struggle to find employment, and even when they do, they may have to travel a long way to get to the job.
Even though freelance may appeal to a lot of people, a temporary contract is also very popular. Temporary contracts will be used for employers to get people into work for part or all of a project. It's different to a freelance because there's set end date that is agreed and the amount of time that the employee will be working for. You also wouldn't need to worry about doing any of those pesky accounts, as the company will cover the tax and national insurance. But this type of contract can still be risky. There's usually no extra perks that you would get if you were permanently employed, such as training and discounts. There will also be a lot of stress towards the end of the contract when you need to find another job. There are two different types of payment for a temporary contract: a sum payment and a profit share. A sum payment is guaranteed payment that the employee will receive at the end of a contract. This is a safe, risk-free payment, unlike profit share. This is when the employee is paid a percentage of the profit that the project makes. This is great if a project makes a lot of money, but obviously if it's a disaster, then it will be a waste of time for the employee.
Possibly one of the most well-known types of contracts is a permanent contract. When the employee signs this, it means they can have a job at the company for the rest of their lives if they choose to do so. All media corporations will have at least one permanent staff member but it doesn't mean that it guarantees a risk-free employment. If you aren't providing the things that you agreed in your contract, like not turning up for work on time or being lazy on set, then you could be fired. Also, if the company was to go bust, then they would be able to fire all of their employees, even if it's not their fault. But on the other hand, permanent contracts do have perks. Unlike temporary and freelance, there's an opportunity for promotion in a permanent position at a company. A few weeks ago, I interviewed Alan Smith, a lighting cameraman who worked for the BBC for his whole life. He worked his way up through all of the departments from a runner to a cameraman. He managed to get the job as soon as he finished college and started as an apprenticeship on very low pay. In this example of how a permanent position can be beneficial for a long-time job, there's also holiday time off and sick pay. This would help a lot if you had to take a lot of time off work for medical reasons. A freelancer would be forced to work whilst they're ill or face running out of money. There's also benefits such as discounts off partner companies or a free gym membership and so on. But finally, it is very easy to get stuck in a permanent contract and continue just to do the same routine every day without striving for something bigger and better.
Apprenticeships are very popular in the media industry. They're essentially like work experience, but can go on for up to a year. Apprenticeships in the media are known to be the best way to break into the industry, starting from the bottom job and then working your way up the hierarchy. But there's a downside to these apprenticeships. They're usually unpaid or on a very low hourly wage, with the minimum being just £2.68. But the job is meant to be a good opportunity to get the employee into the industry, not for a good salary. Expenses only are also used a lot in the industry and are very similar to apprenticeships. Apart from getting a very low salary, you aren't given any at all. People would get these types of jobs when there's a low budget project and the budget doesn't cover the lower level staff. They would do this so that they can gain experience and put it on their CV. This may mean the difference between them getting a job in the media industry over someone else's in the future.
A confidentiality agreement is very popular in journalism. This agreement will restrict the employee from taking any data from the company and then either giving it or selling it to anyone else, like a rival company. If the employee is found to have broken this agreement, then they could be taken to court over spilling the company's secrets. When signing a contract, there are many things the employer may ask from you. Firstly, there's an exclusivity that will prevent you from sharing your work with anyone else. An example of this happening is, say, if a photographer takes a unique picture of a celebrity and went to the Sun newspaper, the Sun would want exclusive rights to that image. This is so other newspapers wouldn't be able to use the picture in their story, and therefore more people would buy the Sun to see the exclusive content. A similar story to this happened with Kate Middleton in a French newspaper.
Finally, a copyright waiver. These are used primarily in universities and is an agreement stating that all of the work that is produced by the individual of the course is then owned by the company or university. This usually wouldn't be a problem, but it is wise to make sure you know what you're signing or you could find yourself losing all your work.